Pressing live now.
There we go.
Hey, we're
Hey,
live.
Lawrence.
How's it going?
It's going. It's going. It's a nice Saturday here in BC on the West Coast. Just
Awesome.
watched a SpaceX launch. Was exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm just going to welcome everyone. Hello, good morning to some, good evening to others. Thanks so much for joining. Obviously, we have Brad here. He needs no introduction. You can ask him anything, tips on writing, producing, Stargate, Travelers, Outer Limits, early career. You can even ask him about other films and shows because he's just a huge sci-fi fan. He's been in the business for 3 decades, and yeah, there's only one rule: please don't spam. Spam is great for a plate, but bad for a chat forum. We'll get to as many questions as possible. And in the meantime, as you guys start asking questions now, actually lots of members have started like emailing a couple days ago and also when they registered. So we'll get through some of those questions first as it builds up. But Brad first.
Can I say something that I know is going to be a question? I just want to say that I know a lot of people are going to ask about a new Stargate project. And the fact is, I just want everybody to know that MGM and I are working on something. It's just too early to talk about, and it's partly too early because there's a pandemic going on, and that's kind of ground a few things to a halt. But we are working on something. It's very exciting. It's something that we've been talking about for a while now, and I love it. I'm excited to have the possibility of making it someday soon or someday period. and it's, I'll say this much. I'll say that it exists in the universe that you already know. It's not a reboot. It's not a completely new thing. It's a continuation, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not allowed to say
That's
any
what we
more.
want to hear, Brad.
Secrecy.
That's what we want to hear.
Good. Everybody's just going offline now, right?
Yeah,
That's all I
we're
want to
done.
know.
We're done. We've done our job. AMA. Thanks, guys. Oh wow, that's exciting. It's exciting. I don't know if I'm gonna see if there's any, what's going on in the chat here, but hopefully
Okay, go ahead.
people are loving that. I'm seeing lots of woos, lots of
Woo!
claps, thank yous, well dones. We need more Stargates. That's what's happening. That's awesome. Oh, great news. What a way to kick off the
Yeah.
AMA.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's get to some questions now. It's like,
Okay.
the first question comes from Christoph Collada, and it's just a simple one. What are some of your favorite sci-fi books, Brad?
Favorite sci-fi books? Oh wow. I started reading sci-fi when I was like in my early teens, and I really, I read all of Isaac Asimov. I read as much Fred Saberhagen as I could get my hands on. And it was funny because of the time. I just thought there would be an infinite amount of classic sci-fi out there, but there isn't. There's a ton of it, but the stuff that's magnificent, you can kind of burn through it in a lifetime. And but so now I love Scalzi. John is a great writer. We're kind of cut from the same cloth of not being able to write something that doesn't have humor in it. There's a couple of books that I've read lately, and I'm trying to remember the author's name, but it's called I can't remember the name. It's great. No, I just love science fiction, but I love hard science fiction. I love like the hardcore stuff. If you read my essay, I love fantasy too. Lord of the Rings was like epic when I was 12 years old, and I read that, all 3 volumes, and cried when Gandalf fell, and my brother at dinner said, "Don't worry about it, he's going to be okay," and I got really mad at him for the spoiler. But mainly I love sci-fi, and I love space opera. I love military sci-fi. I love writing military sci-fi. I don't know why. Maybe it was well predated Stargate SG-1 that I had this affection for military fiction too. Not that I'm hugely into war. It's just that it has such an impact on humanity and on the creation of civilization that it's impossible to ignore as a as a thing that happens in the world, and it has always happened in humanity. It's just what happens when people stop talking, and I love science fiction set in the distant future. Children of, I'm trying to remember the name of that book that I just read. British author, brilliant. It's about spiders that evolve, meeting humans for the first time. It's brilliant, and somebody should tell me. Somebody remember it and tell me.
Yeah,
because it's really popular.
Well, when
too.
you remember, we'll tweet it out later. So
okay, good idea.
So we'll get
good
into
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you speaking of Scalzi, one of the other members had asked, Ian Zania. He was asking, what role did John Scalzi play, and what were some of his notable contributions, in Stargate universe?
Okay, so John didn't have a major role. I mean, what he did was he was at home, and I met him. We met him once. We flew him out. We had a meeting. But what he did was he would read a script once I thought it was in good enough shape to share. And he read it from a science perspective, and because with SG we were trying to be more accurate. My penchant for trying to be a little more accurate in terms of science and science fiction was getting more serious. And John is a smart man, and his knowledge is encyclopedic. So, I mean, he would read the scripts and say, you can't possibly do that in that much time if we were talking about a flight at a certain speed. He's just smart, and but also he's also very creative. So he would talk about character and as well, but mainly he was our science fiction consultant, and I loved getting his insights, and it's funny. I said in my essay too. I'm always just a little bit embarrassed when I talk to real scientists about science fiction, especially my science fiction, because you start talking about, and it happened with John. You start talking about a structure in that was visible after the Big Bang that indicated that something happened before the Big Bang, evidence of life before life was possible to exist, and I remember getting the email and him going, "Wow, heady stuff, man," and thinking to myself, and being a little bit embarrassed because I knew that he understood this stuff much more than I do, but he completely got it and completely helped us form that part of the story. It was great.
Oh, nice, awesome. We got another question. This one came from a Twitter member, SGC Gate, and they wanted to know, who are your heroes in the field of writing, acting, directing, and how do they influence your career? So kind of maybe even related to the last question as well.
Related to it, that didn't catch that last part. Life and career. It's on the screen.
Yeah.
Hello. I don't have any immediate heroes. I have filmmakers that I love. I mean, who doesn't love Steven Spielberg? And I loved early Lucas. I worry about having heroes because people's careers ebb and flow. I think Aaron Sorkin is among the greatest writers ever, and he doesn't do science fiction, but his dialogue is so unbelievable and so captures real people. So I lean toward that kind of thing. I could go way back to Frank Capra. I love Frank Capra stuff, and it's that's incredibly old stuff, but capturing humanity. Films and actors and writers and directors who can capture, I'm not inventing this term, but something with heart, something that is has an element of heart in it. And it could be, it could be It's a Wonderful Life. It could be Aliens. Aliens is got that great stay away from her, you bitch moment that is technical and incredible and powerful, but it's driven by heart, this protective instinct, and so I would have to include actually Aliens in that. It's that film that when it's on TV I can't not watch it, and it's just every scene is perfect to me. I
Yeah,
just love that film.
I call those take you along for the ride films, where you accidentally get onto the
Yeah,
channel and then it takes you on for a ride and then you're on it.
yeah. Groundhog Day is like that.
Right, right.
You're watching TV and, oh geez, there's Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. I have to watch a few minutes of this, and no matter where you are in the movie, you go, I gotta go to bed. You turn it off. But yeah, it's funny because sometimes it's Stargate, and I'll be in my little gym doing my lamish sort of exercises, and I'll be flipping, and there'll be an episode of Stargate, and it'll be, oh God, yeah, I remember doing that. I remember when Andy shot that, and oh man, it's funny because most people watch the episode. I watch that part of my life when I see that episode where I was, where the director was in his career or her career, and I see
So
growth,
it like takes you back to that moment, like while you're on set and while you're doing the whole process.
I missed the first part of that. It broke up.
Oh, I was just wondering, like, so it actually takes you back to set and takes you back to that moment rather than seeing the story on screen.
Yes, it does. It takes me to great example. 2010, Andy Makita directed it. The last act of that episode came out of my computer. I mean, I felt like I typed it in real time, and it didn't change at all. I mean, basically what I wrote in that moment, and then Andy came in with this amazing way of shooting it and concept of shooting it, and it was, if not his first episode that he directed, it was one of them, and it just made me go, oh man, that was a great decision. Hiring Andy as a director, get up, because he had worked with us for so many years as a production manager, and then as producer, and as a first AD. I mean, early in Stargate, and so when he took off and directed 2010 as well as he did, it blew me away. And like music cues, like I can't, pardon me, I can't not watch the ending of SGU. Well, the last episode's not really an ending, although to me it feels like an ending now. But Joel's final piece, that final piece of music that he wrote for that episode is just so good.
Mm. Nice. Another question, I guess, on writing. This is from Leslie Ann K. What does your usual writing process look like? Are you an outline guy? Do you write sequentially? Do you just tackle each scene as you're ready for it?
I don't recommend my writing process to anyone.
Okay.
Of course, I used to outline because you had to. When I was newer and younger, people had to see your outline. But honestly, for me, the outline process takes as long as the script process, and it's less informative to me as a writer. I'm not a plotter. I don't think of the whole story ahead of time. I can't. I mean, I have and I do. When I have had to, when I've had to. But I am much better as a writer when I'm in a scene. I know what the scene should feel like. I know what the character's goals and intentions are. But I don't really know what the scene is going to be until I get at it, until the one character says something, and then I go, oh, this person should say this, and for me, the process of discovery is way better. To give you an example, in the pilot of Travelers, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. If you haven't seen Travelers yet, you should. But in the pilot of Travelers, I hadn't decided if the cop character was going to die. I thought he might end up being a recurring character. And in that scene, as I was typing, as he chases Philip down the alley, and I thought, geez, what if he has a heart attack right in that moment? And and Philip knows it's going to happen. He just didn't know he was going to be there for the heart attack, or that he was going to be the cause of that heart attack. And I thought, well, maybe he'll get over them. And I thought, what a perfect way of encapsulating a protocol. Not just don't take a life, but don't save a life, which is protocol something 3. And so Gower is chasing him, Philip, down this alleyway, and in that moment, I decided that was the scene, and it ended up being way more powerful than, and I ended up discovering that by writing the script. And I don't think I would have got there in an outline. I think I would have, because I wasn't in the moment with the characters, I think the outline would have just said, achieve the story beat I was trying to achieve, and I would have moved on. And Gower may not have died in that moment, which was I think one of the best scenes in the episode. But having said that, you can't run a show that way. So in our writer's room on Stargate, we had a big, and in Travelers, in every writer's room I've ever been in, the way I like to do it is to put up a big whiteboard, and you put the beats that you know, okay, because somebody always comes in with a core idea. What if this happens? Yeah, I'll use SGU for an example. What if Destiny is hurtling toward a star, and you think, oh shit, we're all going to die because it's powered down and it's out of power, and oh, that was a bad thing to happen. But what if that's how Destiny gets its power? What if it's truly solar powered? Because I was realizing that if it was on a journey as long as it is, it had to replenish its power. There's no such thing as an infinite power source. Lawrence went away. I'll keep talking. And so in that moment, you come in with that idea, and well, what do you do with everybody else? And so you put the beats on the whiteboard, and then all of you as a writing team sit down and you fill in the holes. Like you 5 acts of story, and you put in the beats. Hopefully you have an idea of how it's going to end. You put that down. You have an idea of what the tease is going to be, how the show opens. You put that down, and you basically fill in the blanks as a group, throwing out ideas, building on what is already on the whiteboard, sometimes taking the eraser and wiping it away again, which is important, and then realizing, oh, that doesn't connect to that, or this doesn't make sense at all. But that's what a writer's room is. The writer's room is beyond just the original spinning and spitballing and throwing ideas around. It's putting it up on the whiteboard. And I'll do that. I do that for my own stuff too. But what I really like to do is to be minimal, to at least give myself this is when you're making a show, an idea of structure without committing to it completely. When I'm creating a new show, when I'm writing a pilot, I just start writing, and I don't recommend that to anybody. It's just I've written so many hours of television. It's just that's the way it works for me, and so that's what I do.
Was there actually a moment maybe where, I mean, you're obviously a huge veteran, so you probably have structure and ideas down pat, but maybe for younger writers, or maybe when you were a younger self, maybe there was a moment you crossed over. Impossible to tell.
I hope I'm not the only one who can't hear you properly. I'm trying to read your lips,
Oh
Lawrence.
no.
Yeah, I heard, oh no. I didn't hear any of that.
No, I would just to simplify the question. Was it because you've been writing for so long? Was there a moment that kind of crossed over, like from when you were a younger writer, with outlining and everything, into not needing it as much because you've been writing for so long?
I guess like I don't I'm the when I'm the showrunner, and I've only been the showrunner lately for the last 20 years or so, and I have that privilege, but I'm, I can't just to a new young writer say, no, just go write it, unless there's an enormous amount of time, and they want to try that process. What it sets you up for, though, is the knowledge that that somebody may have a big note that changes everything, and you may just have to throw away a giant chunk of what you've written. Especially like at the high level, if you've written something and they go, we love this, but this whole ending is just not where we think it should go. Oh, well, I didn't write an outline. I'll just do a very heavy second draft and big rewrite. And that's just, par for the course when you do it that way. And then the other thing that happens if you have a lot of time is I'll write a version of a draft, and I'll just, I'll finish it, and it's just for me. I mean, it's not like I'm going to send it to anybody at that point. And I'll wait like a weekend or 5-6 days, and I'll read it again. And I'll go, what the hell was I thinking? And immediately see what the solution, or sometimes see what the solution is. But my other thing that I do when I as a thing that I'm not sure many people do this, and I don't think a novelist could, but I start on page 1 every time. So when I'm writing, I'll write to the, sometimes I'll come out with a bunch of pages. The next day, I go back to page 1, and I read it, and because sometimes what you've written informs stuff earlier, and you can see ideas in, and it makes you seem much smarter than you actually are. But no, I start on page 1 every time, which is why there are always more typos on the last page. But also because when I'm in production, if I type the end, I immediately want somebody to read it and tell me whether it's as good as I think it is or not. So I hold off on that moment as long as possible. But yes, I have a unique process, and again, I don't recommend it, especially for young writers, because structure is really important.
When you wrote the rules of sci-fi for us, did you use the same process where you start at paragraph 1 and then wrote and then kind of go back, or was it a different process?
Absolutely. That's a great example. When I wrote that essay, I just started at the beginning, and I would change it. It would be very fluid. And a little joke or thing that I thought was great yesterday, I would think how stupid is that today? And yeah, that's definitely how I do it. And then when you get to the end and you have to do another draft, you get notes from people. And sometimes it's notes you have to do. Sometimes it's notes that that are just suggestions, and you have to take those notes, and you generally have 55 pages of script, and you have to somehow make that work without adding more material, because you can't write a 65-page script. You can't shoot 65 pages of script, because every 10 pages, every 7 pages is an entire shooting day, which is $80,000, $120,000 worth of production. So when you write 10 pages that you have to cut out, you've just pissed away a lot of money. So the goal is to write a script that is just long enough that in the editing room, when you're done, you have 2, 3, 4 minutes tops that you can shave off the episode to reach your program length, or, which was the beauty of working for Netflix, you can shrink it or expand it to the size you want. But it was always for me around 44 minutes screen time for an episode, and that in page count is around 51 pages, 52 pages for me. So when you address somebody's note, which sometimes means adding something, you have to find stuff to take away. You have to get rid of stuff. I actually had a writer, I won't say his name, who I said, "You're too long," and he went away. And this really happened. He went away and he came back, and I went, okay, I don't know how you did that so fast. And I read it again, and I said, I don't see what you cut out. And he said, no, I just changed the margins. And I went, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought you were gonna say I just deleted all the thes.
Well, no, that would be hard to read. But he just changed, he altered the margins, and I anyway. So go ahead, another question before I
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on
no,
more
no,
about
of
that
course.
guy.
Let's do this. Let's get a couple of like Stargate and Traveler
Oh,
space
gee,
questions in here
Lawrence,
going.
I'm having a hell of a time
You can't hear
understanding
me.
what you're saying. No.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now? Um, it's all right. I'll
Um,
keep
this is fun.
saying random stuff, and then hopefully you can start
Random
hearing
stuff. I heard that.
random
Very
stuff.
good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Go.
Is
Go.
it is
Go. I
it
can hear
is it
you.
coming back now? Okay. So Stargatey questions. Arctic Goddess One from Twitter asks, "What ancient technology do you wish was real and that we could use in our daily lives now?"
Oh, which ancient technology could we put in our daily lives? Huh. Well, there's a lot. Um, I think a faster than light travel would solve an enormous amount of problems. Uh,
Yeah.
I think we could explore. It really would. But with that would come anti-gravity. Uh, I mean, ancient technology, as in spaceships would be great. I think it would be. I think it would be wonderful. I think it would be really, really great if humanity could figure out a way to travel faster than light and go to other worlds. That would be wonderful. There's a lot of stumbling blocks to that. There's a lot on the way in terms of real science. You can't just go faster. You actually have to come up with a way of changing a fundamental law of the universe, altering it in a way that that we haven't come up with yet. And even then, you have to figure out how that gets around things like time dilation and you have to come up with a power source for that. I mean, even if you came up with the science to make it happen, like the Albuquerque drive, I think I pronounced that right. I'm not sure. Like warp drive, basically. You would, I don't think there's a dilithium crystal around that's going to do it. You know what I mean? So that would be great, but it's a real big challenge, and I don't think I'll see that in my lifetime. It's a dream though. It would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Another Stargatey kind of question. Hunter Falk Burgess asks, out of all the characters, worlds, and stories that we got to see in the Stargate franchise, which ones would you want to revisit and why?
Of all the characters, I didn't hear the last part of what you said, so I'm going to read it. I always wanted to. This is kind of funny. I always wanted to do another Ashen story. I liked the Ashen, like again 2010. I thought that their plan was so insidious, and but Rob Cooper used to tease me about it because he felt that the long game that the Ashen played was undramatic, inherently undramatic, which is why it ended up playing well as a time travel story, because by the time we realized what their plan was, it was already too late, and the only solution was to find a way to send a message back and not meet them in the first place. Obviously, I have a thing for time travel, but I think Rob's joke was, "Oh my God, they stopped us from being able to grow corn," which was pretty funny. At least it was for me at the time. I killed myself. But I thought I could come up with another long game type story. There was something interesting about a culture that had that sense of superiority and sense of the long game of, well, we'll win. It'll just take 100 years. I just thought that was so insidious. And I only got 2 episodes in that world, but there might have been a third out there. Yeah, I'll stick with that answer.
Oh yeah, no, the great
Oh, and the
characters.
Knox. I loved the
Yeah.
Knox. I thought the Knox were fun. They were so great. But again, they were who they were, uh, who they who they ultimately were in that episode kind of precluded our ever seeing them again. It was like, oh, you're so young to us, of us. Like you're not ready. You're just so not ready to be our friends.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so even though there's maybe a little bit of technical difficulties, can you hear me okay right now? No,
No.
you can't hear me.
I hope I'm not the only one who can not hear you.
I think
Can
they can hear. I think they can hear me for some reason.
everybody can hear? Okay, I can hear. I heard you
That's
say I
what I'm
think I can hear. So
reading in the
keep trying.
comments. Yeah, but and they can hear you fine because we can't hear each other. Well, I can hear you, but we're gonna try one more layer. We actually have a special guest for you, Brad, an old friend who couldn't make it. Wanted to ask you a question as well. So we're gonna cue
Okay.
that up right now. Okay.
Okay. A
Okay.
special guest. Okay.
Hey, Brad, it's Narain Shankar, Blast from Your Past. So I got a question for you, man. Despite the enduring popularity of shows like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, which I worked on with you many years ago, with few exceptions, maybe notably Black Mirror, it seems like successful anthology series are few and far between these days. Do you think there's a place for anthologies in the current landscape of, more novelistic television? Love to hear your thoughts.
Love that guy. Narain. Hey. Uh, um, I think I think the reason anthology can come back and has in the form of Black Mirror, um, is because now you're not dependent on the last episode to be able to air the next one. I think regular broadcast television made it difficult. I think the only one of the only reasons The Outer Limits managed to go as long as it did was it was set up with literally a business relationship between MGM and Showtime. It was part of a larger deal, and so they knew they were buying to get access to MGM's library. Showtime also had X number of hours of shows like The Outer Limits, and which Narain and I had a great time working on together. It was so much fun. But I think he's right that now might be the best time, and I would do that again in a heartbeat. As hard as it is, as hard as it is to do anthology, and it really is, because it's like doing a pilot every week. When we were doing 22 episodes of The Outer Limits, we were casting 22 separate pilots, essentially 22 separate shows. Like everybody who came in to be in that episode had to be cast. You didn't have recurring characters, and every set had to be new. There was no such thing as a standing set, so it was bloody difficult. But it's also so rewarding when you do an anthology episode that stands alone and is fun and is solid, uh, and uh, and you have your dogs too. It's inevitable. You don't have a recurring cast to fall back on. You don't have a through line or a backbone that is the reason the show got bought in the first place, like an O'Neill, a Carter, a Teal'c, a Daniel, that you can you know depend to hold it together because of their own strengths as characters and as actors. Uh, so it's risky, and I think that's part of the reason anthology has struggled, and I think networks tend to be risk averse, especially broadcast networks, because if you don't get an audience in your time slot for consecutive weeks because the last one sucked and the next one wasn't that much better, well, the next one's fabulous, but if you don't get the eyeballs on it, you're screwed. Whereas Black Mirror, it all went up at once on Netflix. Everybody had the ability to, if they didn't like it, watch the next one. I watched them all. I thought it was terrific. I thought it was very, very solid, incredibly well written, and I think proved a point that anthologies like The Outer Limits and The Twilight Zone proved to a certain extent, and that is that you can grasp a theme and make that the through line, as opposed to sets and actors and characters. And so that in a way the audience is getting the same show because it is like Black Mirror is a perfect example. It was a side of technology, a side of this technology, the Black Mirror. It took me like an episode or two to figure it out. Sadly. So yeah, hey Narain, if you want to do an anthology at some point, let's do it.
Oh, that'd be
probably.
awesome. Yeah.
I'd do The Outer Limits again. It was so much fun. Although I have to say this too, we did stuff on The Outer Limits in terms of sets and stuff in general, in terms of visual effects, that you could not get away with now in terms of sophistication of the audience. I did a show, Light Brigade, which was like season 2. Almost a sequel to another episode that I had written in season 1 called Quality of Mercy, which was a bottle show. 1 set, 2 actors, saved a lot of money. And directed by Brad Turner. Fabulous job. And Nikki DeBoer's in it, and Robert Patrick. Anyway, so I wanted to do a sequel of that in that universe, essentially. And so at least I didn't have to build a whole new universe again. But it required the building of a spaceship. And because it was anthology, our per episode budget for sets was not super huge. But Steve Gagan, the production designer at the time, and I had this what we used to do is I would write, and I do this to this day, before I write a story, before I commit to a story, I have conversations with the art department. Hey, can we do this? Can I build this? What do you think? What stages should we put it in? How would we achieve this? And so we, you can come up with ways of solving problems with the art department, put it into your script, and it sounds like you're smart right off the top. But Steve had to have some shortcuts, and so the actual hatches in the tunnels, which were gigantic cardboard sonotubes that we painted the inside of and put ladders in. The hatches were actually garbage can lids, literal garbage can lids that were spray painted, which in a standard definition 4:3 looked fine. In HD, you'd go, "Is that a garbage can lid?" So, and same with visual effects. You could do a matte painting, or you could do an optical, and you couldn't tell it was a model. But in modern with modern 16:9 with 4K, you would see that looks like a model, or that looks like crap. And so the level of sophistication will have had to go up. I think Black Mirror's achieved that. I think that the dogs in that episode were amazing. Can't remember the name of it. The black and white episode. But yeah, that is the bar. I mean, you have to be really good in terms of your visual effects. And so embracing an anthology, especially the way we were writing them, we were writing scripts and we were shooting them weeks later, building the sets as we went along. I mean, that's insane, that sort of breakneck speed that we operated at. For The Outer Limits, but I do it again because it was so much fun and so rewarding, and you meet actors who want to do television because they don't have to commit to a whole series or multiple seasons. They get to do a character for one episode. We got some pretty decent folks to be in that show. I mean, I got to meet some great talent, and it was great to work with them. So
awesome.
Yes, Narain, I think it's possible. Let's do it together. He's a really smart guy. He's so smart.
throw Scalzi into the mix as well, and you guys can
Yeah,
trade
yeah.
science and anthology banter. Okay, so
I
in
think
the
John.
comments, we're gonna
I
jump
think
into
John would
the.
dig anthology.
Yeah, I mean, he did some of the Love, Sex, and Robots, I think, right, on Netflix. That
Yeah,
anthology
yeah. There
series.
were there were his stories. It's funny, I haven't. It's very different. Screenwriting and writing novels is a very different animal, and characters on a page have to exist more complete on a page in a novel, and whereas screenwriting, it's a marriage of the writing and the performer. A character is not ever complete in a screenplay. That last step, that really important step, is when an actor breathes life into the character you've written, and it becomes a partnership going forward. So when I write a pilot, I have sometimes it's a favorite actor, sometimes it's just a random voice I've generated in my own head. But as soon as you cast it, as soon as that role is a real person, that voice takes over as you're typing the character. And I think that's another huge difference between writing for a screenplay and writing for a novel. I am writing Eric McCormack's voice for Travelers. I'm writing Richard Dean Anderson's voice for Stargate. Amanda Tapping. You know their cadence. You know what they sound like. You know their rhythms. And so once that partnership gets good, and once you've hit the ground running, they read the script and it sounds like their character to them. They go, oh, this is me, and I know how to say this. Part of that is too, in a read through, if they have a hard time, like Rick hated long speeches, like he had kind of a 2-finger rule, and it's not because he didn't like memorize them. He just felt more real when he had shorter things to say, and I mean that. And he was a consummate professional, but he just didn't think O'Neill should do long speeches, and so that burden went to other people, obviously. But as far as Travelers is concerned, I actually wrote with Eric McCormack's voice in my head for the character, hoping that I might be able to get him because I knew he was Canadian and I wanted this to be a Canadian show, and because I'd worked with him before. But I didn't really think I'd be able to get him. It might be because I wrote it with him in my head, though, that I did get him, because he read the script and went, "Wow, yeah, I could. This is something I could do. This speaks to me." Patrick Gilmore, who plays David, I actually literally wrote the part for him, knowing I could get him into audition. And so during the auditions, he went straight to callbacks. During the auditions, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, like 5 or 6 years actually, and he was sitting in his car as I walked out of mine to go into the casting studio with Maureen Webb, who is a brilliant casting director. And so he sees me and he waves and he rolls down the window and go, "Hey Patrick, how's it going?" And he goes, "Hey Brad, it's a long time no see." And I said, "By the way, I have to go in, but just so you know, I wrote this part for you, so don't fuck it up." And he went, "You wrote it for me?" And I went, yeah. It's you can't really screw this up, I promise. And sure enough, he hit it out of the park, as I knew he would.
All right, there's a lot of comments coming. There's not even a question, but there's a lot of comments in the chats, and they're wondering what's going on. Who are the cats in the background? And maybe describe your office. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Lulu. This is a cat that we got from my daughter Kayla when she was like 5, and Lulu just passed a few years ago, and she was a lovely cat, and actually went off to live with my daughter when my daughter went off to university. This is Napan. Where is it? Oh, the other way. This is Napani. Napani was our first cat, and then in the middle, I'll get out of the way. In the middle, that's Boo. That was our dog, a golden retriever lab cross, who was with us for 15 years and has been gone for about 5. But my wife, for a few Christmases in a row, had those made for me, and I just love them. So they're in my office.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna quickly
Yeah.
scroll through some
It's so
more.
funny that the cat picture behind me. It's they're great. I love them.
Let's see. Here's an interesting question from Words Are Magic to Me, one. The question is, as a professional biologist, I'm curious how much thought and research goes into the biology of planets and aliens that appear in the shows.
Well, as a biologist, you are well aware that most planets we would go to, we would probably die. I started making jokes in SG1 where there were so many trees and so many planets. It was like Johnny Appleseed went out into the universe. But we have to shoot on Earth, and so that's our limitation. I mean, I think the tougher question is, why is everyone speaking English? Which, at least Star Trek had the universal translator, which was their answer. For Stargate, it would be such a barrier. We just hoped that we could that the audience would accept it as a conceit, just like they accept gravity on spaceships, because it's very difficult to do anti-gravity. The only person I think who did it, Ron Howard, did it in Apollo 13 by building a set inside the Vomit Comet, which is a DC-10. He built a set inside a DC-10, and they did parabolas. But back to the biology question, it is true that that all the planets we go to seem to have perfectly breathable air, and but maybe that's why the ancients put stargates there. That was our answer. And sometimes it came. We got story out of it. For example, the Eratus bug in the Pegasus galaxy is a creature that ultimately we wanted to plant as something that was fundamental to what the Wraith became. But it was also a bit of a barrier, because of course there would be indigenous life, right? We did an episode called Bane that Robert wrote that was essentially about an indigenous life form that almost killed Teal'c. But it, changing the biology of a planet or changing or going to a foreign planet, unless that was about the story, it was incredibly difficult from a technical perspective. We tried things. We tried to change like the color of plants, like just in color correct, and just I mean, Star Trek just made the sky red because it was a psych, right? It was a giant. It was the back wall of the studio lit red, and we just never found, or rarely did we find, creatures or things that, unless it became integral to the story. For example, I did an episode called Cloverdale in season 2. I think it's a season 2 episode of SGU, and I realized I couldn't afford in a million years to do the whole episode in the defending the gate aspect of the story, because those creatures, those plants, essentially were so expensive, because every frame of those scenes where they existed was CG, and so I think maybe it would be easier now to create planets where there was a different biology, and especially since the shooting world has changed. An alien planet 20 years ago in Stargate was driving out into the forest. The big problem was we couldn't see buildings, we couldn't see power lines. It had to be, we shot in a lot of gravel pits. But now the city has grown so much that you'd have to go out of the zone, which is like a place where you can legally and morally ask a crew member to drive in their car to a location within a shooting day. Otherwise, you're really risking people's lives by making them work 12 hours and then drive an hour and a half on the other side. And so, since the city has grown so beyond the zone, alien planets have to be in studio, in green screen, and in coves. So that kind of thing, that kind of storytelling about biology, different biologies, would be more available to us. In the event we get to do it again.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there's a couple of comments I'm seeing here. It wasn't necessarily directly related to green screens, but I'm going to find them here. It's more around the volume walls, like in The Mandalorian, and effectively those giant LED. Yeah, what do you think about those?
I would love to. I mean, as soon as I read about those, I sent the link to a couple of friends, like Carrie Mudd, my producing partner on Travelers. I said, we need to do we need these. We need to shoot something on these. I said, Joe Malazzi, I said the same thing, because I mean, you have to do it all beforehand. I mean, all the CG, the world, the has to be created beforehand. But the benefits of being able to shoot actors in front of an environment that looks photoreal, to be able to light them without worrying about green spill, for them to be able to see the thing they're reacting to. I mean, it's man, telling an actor that they're actually responding to a little silver ball on the end of a stick that looks like this. That a visual effects coordinator is holding up, and that's the monster's head. So, depending on the actor, they go, really? Or they're looking at the window of their spaceship, and and they're firing weapons, and they're banking left and right, and there ain't nothing out there. There's the guy holding a little ball, saying, "This is where your eye line should go," and what the Mandalorian has is the ability for the actor in real time to see, oh my God, that's what I'm responding to. If I'd only known. It's funny when you do science fiction and you do a screening, and I like to do that. I like to screen episodes for the cast. If you're lucky enough to be finished an episode or two before you wrap, and say, you know what, let's get a little gathering and watch one of these. You should all be very proud of it. We did it for every one of our pilots. We'd have the whole crew and do a screening for them, and for the actors to see finally what that visual effect is. That they were imagining 3 months earlier or 4 months earlier. It's that would be the huge advantage to the Mandalorian style. All that LED wall. I can only imagine, though, that they're really expensive right now, and you would need to have a lot of faith that your show is going to go a very long time, in order to not make that kind of investment. Yeah. I don't even know if anything like that exists in Canada yet. I'm fairly confident, though, that it will soon, and it's the way to go. And I would also suggest that it's probably not going to be, the way it is for everything. I mean, if you look at Endgame, the Avengers movie, I mean, there was so much CG in that. I mean, that and so much scope to it. I don't think an LED wall could even work for something like that big. But I don't know. I would love to have one of those to play with.
Well, okay, so it's interesting. Obviously budgets and things play into effect. There was another question. Just curious. I was actually thinking maybe this is a budget thing. So Ian Zania, he asked, I've seen some cool concept art for an Atlantis DHD that was quite different from the kind of like SG-1 style DHD. And what was the ultimate reason for going with that, which is essentially like a same DHD off-world for the off-world gates, while keeping the decidedly cooler DHD for Atlantis control room and the puddle jumpers?
That's a good question. It becomes an art department thing. It becomes a design aesthetic. The one thing that I wanted, decidedly cooler. We we wanted the puddle jumper should have had to have its own DHD built in, right? So it had to be part of that control panel. I really wanted always in SG1, Atlantis, SGU, and going forward, for there to be a unique Stargate as well. I think that the Atlantis gate has a digital quality, and so it seems more advanced. Keep in mind that Atlantis could have existed and evolved and grown long after it left. But we wanted it to have a different look, a different color, so that you knew just by looking at the icon of the Stargate, oh, this is an Atlantis episode. Oh, this is SGU. And the design of the Destiny itself, we struggled with that for a long time. And it's literally one of those drawing on a napkin stories. I was sketching shapes, right? And I was looking at a chevron and kind of elongated it and sent literally that chevron shape to James, our designer, and he made it real from there. But the Destiny itself is an evolution of the Stargate shape. We just wanted each show to have a visual template all of its own, unique to it, and that's really the core reason for that difference.
Nice. I got another technical question from Ibrahim Saeed. He asked, what are some of the strategies that you use to stage scenes and fast-moving productions? But before you answer, quick side note, when we spoke to the VFX supervisor, John Gadecki, he told us that he would previs everything with Fisher-Price figures. Is that also right?
Yeah. John used sometimes little Lego guys to in previs, and I mean, previs is great. Previs is in fact what they do in The Mandalorian. It's just that they take the previs all the way to photoreal, and then they project it. I mean, that's basically what you're doing. You're doing something before you even shoot the thing, so okay, roughly this is what. I mean, John's figures were sometimes hilarious because he would write the name on their little chest, on their little Lego chest, and he would so you knew who was who. But it helps with things like axis, like which direction is the ship flying, which is it, if they're coming through the Stargate left to right, then they have to, on the CG shot, they have to come out of it left to right, stuff like that. Otherwise it crosses the axis, and we were much more in those days concerned with stuff like that than we are now. So the question is, because you broke up again, what are some of the strategies that you use to stage scenes in fast-moving productions? Well, I mean, the thing that makes a great television director different to a certain extent from a great film director, because I would suggest they're different skill sets, is a great television director has a wish list of the shots that they would like to use to cover a scene. And then they realize, then they get a schedule, and then they realize they can't have that wish list. There's not enough time in the day. And so they create a shot that can be covered in other angles, and so your master turns into other coverage. And so when you put it all together, it cuts together nicely in the editing room, and it has to, because you just, going back and do reshoots is one thing for a feature, but it's not something that you can really do very easily on a television schedule. But I've already sort of said some of it in terms of dealing with the art department. I'm a big believer in prep. So you hear horror stories about shows where the production doesn't get the script until way late, and the actors have they get new pages the night before shooting, and they're building props and sets. The paint is still wet when they step on stage, and that to me is A, unfair to the crew, B, it burns money. and see it's just inefficient, and so the more planning you can have in advance, the better. So much so that, and this started happening with The Outer Limits, and then with Richard Hugh Dolan on Stargate, and with every production designer and art department that I've worked with since. It, especially in science fiction. What's the line I like when one of my builders said, "There's no drywall in space," which means that all the shapes that these designers come up with are all unique. There's very rarely a square room in a spaceship that is just simple. They all have angles. They all have structure. They have depth. And the more of that, usually the better. So when you build a swing set, which is a set that's only going to appear in one episode or two, it's really nice when you can use it over and over again. In SG1, we had this benefit of having available to us it's gone now, but it was at the time the largest soundstage in North America. Oh, it wasn't a soundstage; it was an effect stage, meaning that whenever a train went by, you could hear it, and you'd have to stop. And so poor actors were, you'd get a scene where Amanda Tapping or Jewel Staite is, or anybody's doing this great scene that's rich in emotion, and the sound guy goes, "Pause for a sec," and you hear a train go by, and they're holding their emotion, and they have to keep acting. That's people who don't think acting is really hard. They should see somebody in that situation. But we had this gigantic sound effect stage, and we built a village. We built an entire village that could, because as I said, even then we were losing places that we could go to and turn around and make look like it could be an alien thing, and because there seemed to be always humans wherever we went, we were building these sets and using them once. Like Richard built this fabulous thing for an episode called Spirits, and it was just hugely expensive, and it was used in one episode. So we started coming up with ways where we could use a set multiple times, multiple ways, and of course, the village was almost a failed experiment because I thought I was being really smart, but what I didn't realize is how expensive it was going to be to light the damn thing. Because you build something that big and you build it indoors, and then if you want to try to do daylight, you have to bring in so much light, and that it was you learn. We made our show look more, I think, more expensive than our budget really had, by knowing we were going to be there a long time. I mean, we had, before the end of season 1, we knew we were doing 88 episodes, and before the end of season 2, we were doing 5 seasons. That allowed us to invest in stuff that you would not otherwise do as a television show, because you might get canceled in 2 weeks. So you rent everything. And that doesn't suggest that we bought lights, because that doesn't make any sense either, because you're really buying the bulbs. And those things are the real price. And so you rent stuff like that. But you build things that you're going to use again and again. At one point we had, between Atlantis, and talk about efficiencies, at one point we were producing Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis in the same offices, with the same writing staff, with the same production design team. We had 2 designers, but they were working out of one designer, 2 art directors working out of the same office. And that made sense so that we could have those efficiencies, so that we could use our 9 sound stages and build something that was going to be X in one episode and Y for SG-1 and Y in Atlantis. And because our designers were so good, you rarely saw. Well, I could see, but you could at least there was a difference between Planet A and Planet B. And then Joe did a really smart thing in the village. He did an episode called Whispers, and we fogged the whole damn thing up, and you could see the structure, and it was terrific. It was like another use of that place that
Well,
that we
Brad,
wouldn't have otherwise seen.
Speaking of Joe, he's going to be our second special guest, and he's actually queued up right now, and he's been waiting in this virtual backstage. So we're gonna see if we can actually
Oh,
bring him in. He might
Hello.
bring me out just in case.
Hello.
Joe.
I was listening to you talk about the efficiencies of producing Stargate, and frankly, you sound like me, or I sound like you, because whenever I do an interview, I talk about dark matter and the fact that you hear horror stories about other productions writing outlines on napkins or getting scripts the night before. And I always tell people, the reason Dark Matter was such a pleasant set and everyone was happy to be there was because we prepared. And the reason we were able to prepare is because I learned it from you and Rob on Stargate. The fact that, if you're efficient, it just makes life easier on everyone, and the money ends up on screen. Just listening to you talk about that made me smile. So,
well, great.
I remember you visiting the Dark Matter set, and I introduced you as my mentor. And I remember you laughing it off, but it is true. I mean, the reason Dark Matter turned out as great as it was, and it has its fan base, is because of everything I learned working under you on Stargate.
Well, that's great, Joe, and it's great that Dark Matter did so great and looked great. By the way,
Thank you.
It was a great show. It's a shame it didn't continue. We both got the 3-season curse. I got it with Travelers, and you got it with Dark Matter.
We did. Oh, well. But I came armed with 2 questions. Now, forgive me, I'm late to the chat, so in case someone has asked it, I'll move on. But I would like to know what was briefs. Yes. Okay. So basically, I only have one question then. What was your most challenging episode to produce, and why? In the span of your career.
Okay, I can think of 2, and I don't mean challenging, but just downright bloody scary. Do you remember the episode on the planet with the Cirque du Soleil mimes?
Yes, that was before my time. That was season 2. I think that was it.
I can't remember the name of it.
Out of Mind, maybe? Was it Out of Mind?
What we realized was that that we were putting where we shot it, which was out in a place called Stokes Pit, which is gone now. By the way, it's just buildings, which I'm sure you lament, Joe. We were putting these people that were dressed in virtually nothing but makeup outside in temperatures that were pretty much 0, and asking them to act and act in an alien sort of way. Speaking of back to the biological question, and I thought, oh my God, we're going to kill somebody. They're going to freeze to death. And one of them happened to be a friend of mine who I'd gone to university with. So we had all these heaters set up, but it ended up, the sun came out and it didn't rain. And I thought all their makeup would have run off too if it had rained. It was like so scary. Anyway, the other one was it was a Travelers episode in season 2, I think, where I had decided to like a madman to shoot a skydiving episode. And literally devoted a whole section to the episode in the sky, shot with. I went into our producer's office and said, "We can do this, right?" And he went, "Yeah, I think we can do this." GoPros, and so the concept of the episode was a traveler was arriving into the body of a skydiver. They didn't succeed in their mission, and so we went back in time until just after that traveler, and over and over and over again, while the traveler was falling through the sky, and basically sent new travelers into their host body. And so Amanda Tapping read the script, and she directed the episode, and she came into my office, and I'd never seen an actor or director so frightened before, because she was saying, "So, Brad, you want me to direct this episode in the sky?" And I went, "Yeah, that'd be great." She said, okay, sure. Just want to make sure. And it ended up working really, really well because of her amazing planning, and because we found an actor who looked just like the stunt person. But But the one of the reasons I was so scared and it was so stressful and so risky was we shot it in the spring, and it, as you may know, Joe, rains a little here, and you can't jump out of the sky in the rain. It has to be sunny. And we were losing our lead actor to a pilot that she had got with like a much larger show, and it was Friday, and we needed her to shoot these scenes, and we had to tie the skydiving stuff to her on the ground. And thank God, on our last available day, the weather opened up and we were able to shoot the skydiving scenes. And they ended up being magnificent because the sky was beautiful, and I will never do that again. The funny part is people kept, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, so you said the final day, do you mean that you would schedule it for that week and the weather was bad and you had to keep pushing, or and then you just happened to get it on the last day she was available? Holy smokes. That's a high wire act.
Four windows of opportunity, and the last window. Otherwise, I don't know what we would have done. I don't know what we would have done. So don't do that, Joe, on your next show.
Suffice it to say, I don't think I would do any skydiving or high acrobatic scenes.
And what was your second question?
My second question, you being practically the only guy I know who reads as much sci-fi as myself, I want to throw out a question. Basically, if you were given the opportunity to adapt any, I won't even say sci-fi novel, any novel to the big screen, what would it be?
Oh,
you have carte blanche.
Oh, I do know. I have carte blanche. Okay, it's called Legacy of Hero. I think I made you read it.
Yes,
Larry
excellent.
Niven,
I love it.
Jerry Purnell.
And Steve.
It's a great novel, and it's dated, but I think it's just got this fabulous twist in the middle of it that I love. Legacy of Hero. Joe, you were the one who turned me on to the novel. What's the novel about the spiders? Children of Time.
Children of Time. Yes, Adrian Tchaikovsky. Terrific.
There. I was trying to remember that earlier before you came on. Oh, yeah. Now that's a great example of a book that I loved that I don't think would make a very good film because of the time jumping and because of you. I don't know you could anthropomorphize spiders as well as he does just by hearing their thoughts. Yeah. I think you'd go, and that would be that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a great answer. I thank you, sir. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log off so that I don't eat up your bandwidth, and I'm going to join the chat and talk about you behind your back. So thank you very much.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. Well, now he's frozen, so I can't tell if Brad's angry at me. So I will see you soon.
If you can stay on for one more minute, there's actually a question kind of for both of you from someone named Yoshida Babies, which is, I always wondered this. How do you keep the scripts of the character over time when there are multiple writers?
I mean, it's always quality control in the show writing.
Joe, how do you do it?
I mean, to be honest with you, on Dark Matter, I tended to do a pass on everything. And it's the same thing you did when we first joined Stargate. I mean, for several seasons, I mean, the writers would all get in the room and we would break the stories together. The outlines would go through all the writers, particularly Brad and Robert, who would give their notes. And then we would go through the various drafts. And when the scripts we thought perfect, then they would go to Brad and Robert would do their passes on the script to ensure essentially quality control. It's the same thing when I was on Dark Matter. I was a showrunner. All the scripts went through me.
Okay, so that's true, except when you have the ability, and the good fortune that we did for as many years as we did, eventually you all start hearing and reading the same voice, right? So yes, I did. I would do a pass on scripts early on, but by the time Paul and Joe were writing shows for a year or whenever it was. The voice that came out of their typewriter was virtually the same as the one that came out of mine. You know what I mean? O'Neill sounded like O'Neill. Carter sounded like Carter. At the very beginning, it's impossible for the showrunner not to do a big pass. It's impossible. I don't care how good a writer you are. You need it. It's quality control is a good way of putting it, but it's also for the actor, so that the actor picks up a script and knows, yeah, that's my character, as opposed to, I wouldn't say that. And they might have said that had the show been created by somebody else, but it wasn't. So you have this on Travelers. I can only name like 3 or 4 scripts that I didn't do a dialogue pass on. And of course, the longer you go with writers, the closer they're going to get, because they can see the episodes. They can see the performer performing those scenes, and they hear the voice. They hear the character voice. And it would have happened, by the way, had I written The Dark Matter. Same thing would have happened.
Well, I tried to get you to write on Dark Matter both seasons, but you were too busy. So, maybe next show.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Joe, thank you so much.
All right. See you guys later.
See you, Joe.
All right, Brad. So we're going to go now into some quick fire questions. I hope you're ready. Whatever springs to mind. Hopefully that
I'm ready.
These will be like kind of snappy. There's 10 of them that have been coming your way.
Put them on the screen though, because I have a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, we'll do. Number 1, what show should we all be watching right now?
Ooh, great question. Not science fiction at all. Ted Lasso. So good. So moving, so funny, so modern, fabulous writing. I just love that. I absolutely loved it. The Crown. If you want to see money happening on a screen, watch The Crown. It's also brilliantly acted and written. Travelers. You should watch Travelers if you haven't.
Most bingeable series on Netflix. So
good. I just so love Ted Lasso. It's infected me practically. I love it. Heart.
Awesome.
Talk about heart.
If you couldn't write, what else would you do?
Oh, well, I started out as an actor, and then I realized I was a far better writer. But my first, I was in a theater company for years in my 20s with with Debbie, who's my wife and has been ever since. We were in a touring theater company, and we wrote social action theater, and we acted in our little plays, and it was fun and funny, and I kind of miss the performance aspect of being on stage. I would be drawn to science. I'm just I wish I could be. It's the math. The math just was too hard for me. So I ended up being able to, write science fiction television, which was very lucky.
All right, 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. Who do you invite?
Oh, that's too tough. Do I have to have 5? I don't know. I'd like to meet Barack Obama. I just think he would be great. I'd like to golf. You know what? My perfect foursome. I don't even know if they all golf. Jake Tapper, Barack Obama. Just those guys. They would be. I just think they're so fun and so smart. And I'd like to have dinner with Scalzi. I've never had dinner with him. He's a funny, smart guy. That's something that I could actually possibly do sometime when the pandemic is over. I don't have a lot of fantasy about stuff like that. I'm a little more practical. Yeah, I could tell
Okay.
you the 5 golf courses I would like to play. I would love to play Augusta. I'd love to play Cyprus. I'm kidding. Keep going.
No problem. Here's a silly one. Pineapple on pizza.
Oh no, what is wrong with you? Why would you even ask that question? No.
Okay. Who won the fight? Ronan or Teal'c, I guess.
Oh, they're still at it. They're still at it. They're like one gets knocked down and the other one turns to the other one, gets up again and does one of these. That's how that goes. I'd like to write that actually. No,
If you
they're
if you write it,
they're
we'll
undefeatable.
animate it. Yeah, if you write it, we'll animate it. No problem. We'll put it up there. If the world was going to end in 24 hours, and you're the only one who knows this, what's the first thing you do?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good. I mean, the only thing I think of when you say that is I wrote that. I wrote an episode of The Outer Limits called Inconstant Moon. It was actually a Larry Niven short story that I read, where and this isn't an answer to your question, but I'm going to answer it this way anyway. I just read it and it was so moving. It was about a guy who looks at a moon, Inconstant Moon. It's a line from Romeo and Juliet, and he sees that it's so bright and it's brilliantly bright, and he goes, "Wow, look at that!" And he phones somebody he knows who he kind of likes and is sort of flirting with, and then it sinks in. Oh my God! There's only one light source in the solar system, and if the moon is brighter, it's reflecting off the sun. The sun must have gone nova, and they're on the dark side. So when the Earth rotates back around again, they're doomed. And so he asks her out, and he takes her on a date, and then they end up fighting for their lives because it wasn't a nova; it was just a severe flare. What a beautiful story. I had to write it. I had to turn it into an Outer Limits episode. I actually got to ask Larry Niven about it. I changed it in ways I didn't want to, but again, the network and the studio, it was new, so I had to do what they said. But yeah, that's my answer to that. Inconstant Moon.
Thoughts on the Lost season or series finale?
Carl Binder, who I've known for 30 years, and he and I did a show. We're the only writers on a show called Neon Rider, way back, my very first job. He's not a sci-fi guy, but I knew he would be able to bring the heart element of writing into the show. So I brought him into Stargate. I think it's season 4 or 5, and he wrote all the way into Universe. So he ended up being with us as in our writers' room and an executive producer on the show, and he's a showrunner in his own right, of course. And ended up writing, I think, the best SGU that we made, Epilogue. But he loved Lost. He loved the series. And I watched the pilot and a couple of episodes, and I said to him, you have lunch at the writers' room, and I said, buddy, this show, there's no plan. They're just making shit up. I'm telling you right now. And he went, no. You can see that it's like a jigsaw puzzle. No. There's just pieces everywhere. There's no puzzle. And he so I didn't watch the finale, but I remember the day he watched the finale, and I remember the day he walked in, and I said, well, and he went, I don't want to talk about it. I apparently was right. There was no plan. I do love that music cue though, and it's on when I'm right, I listen to soundtracks, and that final music cue from Lost is beautiful. It's just very, very good.
Here's another show. Thoughts on the sad cancellation of Firefly?
There's an example of a network not seeing what they have. I mean, it was. I kind of understand what they were afraid of, because I watched the first episode that they put up and went, how is that a pilot? I don't get it. Turns out it wasn't. They aired them out of order. I didn't realize that until afterwards. And then I think it was Robert or Paul or Joe or both or all. And they said, Brad, give it a chance. It's really good. And I ended up watching them all on one summer, I think after it was canceled. And it's so good. The acting is so great. you know, it's a shame. It should have had multiple seasons, and it was, you know, it's a shame. You know, that's how lucky we were. I don't think if we were in the same position in a million years would SG1 have gotten past episode 5 or 6. I mean, we you know, I think fondly of the season as a whole, but we've had some dogs in there early on, and you know, if we were under the same broadcast network microscope that Firefly was on under, I think we would have been in trouble. So, you know, obscurity can give you a long life. Not that we, you know, we ultimately ended up being a pretty big hit, but you know what I'm saying. It's a shame. Firefly was great.
If you had to make a Travelers team out of the Stargate characters, what would that look like?
Well, if you think about it, Stargate was a Travelers team. If you, I mean, Continuum is going back in time to, you know, to change the future. It's so I'm going to say Carter and Daniel Mitchell, because
who's the medic and who's the
in
tactician? Oh, I was gonna say, like, who's the tactician and who's the medic, and how, you know, that's gonna roll.
You broke up again on me.
Oh, it's.
I'm going to lament. I'm going to lament how I couldn't really understand half of what you said when this is over, Lawrence. It's very frustrating. I'm seeing moving lips.
Sorry about that.
And rating on the bottom. But
no, I'm just wondering who would be, like, as an example, you know, the team leader, the tactician, the medic, the engineer, any of those kind of characters.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I see. Well, Carter's the engineer. Daniel's the historian. O'Neill or Mitchell are the team leader.
You can only have one team leader. You can only have.
Well,
you only choose one team leader,
true.
right?
Okay, because it's Travelers. It's O'Neill and Mitchell's body. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. No, they're both leaders. They're both the leader role. There's not really a corollary for all of them. Medic. There's no medic. We don't have a medic. Oh, I guess Fraser. Janet Fraser.
Okay. Last quick-fire question. Who would you like to see at our next AMA? But whoever you say, you got to help us get them.
Oh, sure. Joe, Narain, John Scalzi. There's lots of folks who would be better at this than me. But you know who would be really fun? Because she's so witty and charming and lovely, Amanda Tapping. And I will ask her. She's great. Do an AMA with Amanda.
That'd be incredible. It'd be great.
And be really nice to her. I'll kill you.
Oh yeah, no, she's so great. Okay, well, it's almost time is almost up. Brad, do you have a few more minutes, or do you want to play one more game?
I could. Yeah? Sure, we could do another thing if you have something ready.
Yeah, we got something really silly for you, which is we're going to find out which SG1 character you are. I think Tommy's going to queue up some questions, and then it's going to do some kind of like brain thing going on.
Okay. But oh dear. Oh no.
Are you able to see that? Are you able to see that?
Choose the word that appeals to you most. Power, culture, loyalty, peace, duty, justice. Peace. The alien race threatens to destroy your planet. What do you do? Left menacingly and destroy. Oh, okay, that's funny. Order an attack and remove yourself from combat. Fight the enemy to the death. Evacuate your people and stay behind to defend their exit. Strategize with others, the best way to proceed. Get everyone to someplace safe and fast. Evacuate your people and stay behind to defend their exit. You're traveling to an unknown planet. Which of these do you take to defend yourself? Staff weapon. Not a shotgun. Good old 9mm. No weapon, they invite violence. You find a stone with strange markings. Your first instinct is to take the stone. It may hold some kind of power, scan it for radiation, attempt to translate the markings yourself. Talk to somebody who you could translate the markings. Leave the stone where it is. It's between the last two. Talk to somebody who could translate the markings. Scan it for radiation. I don't have that ability. Which of the following would you do to live longer? Anything it takes. Mostly anything as long as I can stay myself. Take vitamins, medicines. Well, I have to say 3. I would have my mind transplanted into a clone body. Sure, I would. Why wouldn't I? Can I be taller? Can I ask for that? You discover a new alien civilization. Your first instinct is to attempt to make peaceful contact. Attempt to make peaceful contact. Suppose it's just been taken by your enemy. How do you react? Destroy your enemy's home planet? No. Wage full-scale war and attempt to recover your spouse. Request to help. Secretly attempt to free them on my own. Strategize with others to figure out the best way to proceed. I'm going to say strategize with others to figure out the best way to proceed. Because I don't have spaceship, so I'd be kind of stuck on my own. Which is your favorite color out of the following options? Gonna go with black. Odd. It's not a color. That's how I dress most of the time. A mugger approaches you and an alien demands your wallet at gunpoint. What do you do? See, I'm scrappy. I'm gonna say reason with the man. I'm gonna say reason with the man of those choices. Powerful warship with tons of weapons and stuff. Oh wait, what's the best form of transportation? Doesn't matter as long as it gets the job done. Whatever it takes to get me where I'm going quickest. That's my answer. How long is this quiz, Lawrence?
Yeah, how long? How long?
27,000 easy questions. If it weren't illegal, which of these crimes would you commit? Murder, ha ha ha. Punch the vice president in the face. That's out of character, I know. It's just the times. Just the times. Somebody you loved just died. What would you do? Get really mad, cry uncontrollably. Go somewhere quiet to reflect. Attempt to help the family or the person for as long as I can. Attempt to help the family. It's pretty obvious. Discover incriminating photos of the president with a woman. Can I skip this question? Hasn't this already happened? Hide the photos. No. Exploit the opportunity. No. Throw the photos away. No. Burn the photos. No. I'm going to say turn the photos over to military personnel because that's a bizarre option. What is your favorite animal? Shark, panther, bear, worm, dog, monkey, parrot, bald eagle. Dog guy. Who would say, okay, firefly. Finally, it's very small type on my iPad. Finally, which word best describes you? I don't know. That's not fair. I don't want to say any of those. I guess the best answer is awkward.
Do you have a guess on who you might end up being, or not?
I got to be Daniel. It must
You
be
think
Daniel.
Okay.
Thor. Well, I didn't see that one coming. Well, I didn't see that one
funny.
coming. Do you know who played Thor? Do you know who was Thor? The voice of?
I do.
Michael Shanks.
Yeah. The character you thought you were going to be.
It was amazing. Yeah. He loved doing it too. It was great.
Yeah.
My favorite line of Thor's was, "Hopefully it will be the last of the footwear to fall." Yeah, there's a shoe drop. Anyway, so that was fun, Lawrence. Thank you, guys. I hope it was not a root canal for anybody. The technical problem was probably on my end, but I hope you could hear me and it was fine. So thank you very much. It was fun. And thanks to Joe and Lorraine for coming on.
Oh yeah, that was really great. And thank you. To be honest, all of the members who showed up and asked all the questions, there's so many that we couldn't get through that I've been scrolling through, whether it was in the comments or previously. So I'll send them over to you, Brad, if you want to take a look at them at any point.
Maybe I can answer some more online. Also, guys, I have to say, I think the companion is a great idea, and I really enjoyed writing my essay, and I look forward to writing more. And I think that you're onto something really cool. So fingers crossed for bigger things.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have any other final thoughts, Brad, it's over to you. Otherwise, thanks to everyone else for coming.
Thank you, guys. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Take care.